Hello, hello. Welcome back. We are going to continue to read the novel Lord of the Mysteries by Cuttlefish That Loves Diving. Last time we read chapters 52, 53, and 54. What happened? Oh, we got after the old Neil's ritualistic magic. He somehow got the 30 pounds for his debt settled. We got brief glimpses of the Tarot Club members. Audrey was in like a party, and then we also saw Alger, I think, and then client has his first customer as as the seer in the divination club. So let's continue with chapter 54, the first divination requester. Oh no, chapter 50. We covered chapter 54. So let's go to chapter 55, I think. Where is chapter 55? Revelation. Chapter 55, Revelation. Anna, with her beautiful eyes, hesitated for more than 10 seconds. You can choose any type that you believe will be accurate. You are the fortune teller, while I'm not. Of course, apart from cards, including tarot, I have also attempted studying them at home. I always felt like they were more like toys or a game. Clan thought for a moment, his wrist leaning on the edge of the table. He stippled his hands before his face, his gaze peaceful. He said softly, "Then we shall use the astrolabe." Pointed to a fountain pen and the stack of white paper on the table and said, "Write down the name of your fiancé as well as his facial features, address, and date of birth. It would be better if you can remember specific time he was born." From her clothes, makeup, and demeanor, Klein did not believe she was illiterate. Anna did not reply. She extended her hand and took a piece of paper. She lifted her pen and dipped it in some ink. She started writing, pausing occasionally to think. 2 minutes later, she pushed the paper towards Klein. Klein received it and turned it around. The information on the paper read, Joyce Mayer, 15th September 1323, 2 p.m., Tingen City, East Borough, 8 Stevens Street, short blonde hair, aquiline nose. With a short glance, Klein quickly calculated the person's spiritual number. 1 plus 5 equals 6. In the study of spirit numerology and mysticism, adding the numbers of day the person was born was called their birth path number, affecting the person's life before 27. Birth month path number, calculating by adding the numbers of their birth month, affected their life from 27 to 54, while the birth year path number, calculating the numbers in their birth year, affected their life from 54 years onward. It was July 1349, so Joyce was not yet 27. Thus, Klein immediately calculated the birth day path number. The number represented a balanced and harmonious life with a heart of giving and decent marriage or engagement. Following this, he quickly calculated Joyce's year path number. The so-called year path number was calculated by replacing the birth year with the current year. The digits were then added with his birthday path number and birth month path number to get a general understanding of person's luck for the year. So 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 9 equals 17. 1 plus 7 equals 8. 8 plus 9 birth month path number plus 6 birthday path number equals 23. 2 plus 3 equals 5. His year path number is 5, signifying that he would meet He would meet with change and accident. He would be required to take certain risks. Client made a silent judgment after consolidating the facts. Confirmed that the information Anna gave was correct. He retracted his gaze from the paper and turned it toward Anna. Mr. Mayer set off his journey on 3rd of June. If he did not lie, that is indeed the case. Anna bit her lips. All right, client took the fountain pen and made a note of that. He looked at Anna with his dark brown eyes and said gently, I will begin creating the astrolabe now. I'll need some time and absolute silence. Do you mind waiting outside? Angelica will provide you with a cup of tea or coffee. All right. Anna knew some fortune tellers had their eccentricities, so she stood up unsurprised. She took her hat with her light blue ribbon and left the topaz room. Klein locked the door and turned to the table. He followed the information and set up the astrolabe, including elements such as his horoscope and location of the corresponding planets and stars. Throughout the entire process, he did not open the astromancy manual. He completed the setup based on his memory. Over the past few days of his mysticism studies, Klein realized that he could easily grasp and understand anything about divination, quickly turning it into instinct. Perhaps that's the ability of a seer. He completed the astrolabe and felt satisfied. He felt as though his body, heart, and soul had relaxed considerably. As he looked at the outcomes, he followed the path of the horoscope and the planets, as well as other supporting details, to roughly deduce that Joyce Mayer had met with an accident but would ultimately survive it. At this point, the divination was technically complete, but Klein wanted to pay much attention to his first business transaction. He had hoped to build a reputation to aid in acquiring future jobs. He picked up the pen and wrote a sentence in Hermes, Joyce Mayer's current situation. He read the sentence silently and memorized the information on the piece of paper, repeating it again and again. After 7 times, he grabbed the piece of paper and leaned back into his chair. He imagined a sphere of light, and his eyes became darker, allowing him to quickly enter the state of agitation. The surroundings took on an ethereal quality. A formless, boundless fog stretched above him. Klein recalled the contents of the piece of paper, then relaxed. He fell into deep sleep in the state. He was using a dream divination technique, repeating the question, remembering the details, and then allowing his astral projection to roam the spirit world in a dream would allow him to gain revelations. Ordinary people also had this sort of experience sometimes, but it was hard for them to recall, as the signs in their dreams were more complicated and garbled. A seer would not have such a problem, for they could see the images directly. The surroundings began to turn hazy as Clan turned half asleep. On the contorted fantasy, in the contorted fantasy, he saw a blond young man with an aquiline nose. He was swimming frantically in a sea of blood, nearly engulfed by the waves. But in the end, he managed to escape to the shore. The image shattered and changed. Clan saw a blue house with a toy windmill at the door. That young blond man was entering the house slowly, seemingly in joy. At this moment, the image changed once again. Klein realized he was inside a magnificent palace. The walls were destroyed and damaged beyond repair. Moss and weeds grew in multiple areas. Through the holes in the walls, he could see a mountain peak and clouds clinging close to it outside. Atop the palace was a huge throne carved out of stone. It was adorned with blue gemstones, dull gemstones, and gold. It looked as though it was not prepared for a human. This giant throne was empty and mottled, as if it had been washed over by the ages. Clan looked around in confusion. He did not understand why he would be dreaming of such a scene. His turbid mind turned sharp as he subconsciously walked out of the place in an attempt to ascertain where he was. He suddenly felt a gaze upon him. It was a gaze that came from behind. Clan suddenly turned around and stared towards the giant throne, only to see a scene of countless transparent maggots, slowly twitching and growing. Clan gasped. He opened his eyes and woke up from his dream. Crystal balls, tarot cards, and prepared astrolabe entered his vision. Reality quickly replaced fantasy. The initial dream was a result of the divination. What was the latter dream about? It seems to be targeted at me. Lion put the piece of paper down. He rubbed his temples and contemplated. He could confirm that it wasn't his fear projecting itself in the form of dream, but what was he was doing the divination himself. A palace not meant for humans on the peak of a mountain, a silent stare, the contorted and weird scene of the maggots. Client silently guessed as he recalled. Has the luck enhancement ritual communicated with that existence? Or is it a result of Antigone's family's notebook? Right. That notebook mentioned the nation of Evernight in the Hornassus mountain range. The palace in the dream was on a mountain peak. He made a simple deduction and was relieved that he had picked Seer. According to old Neil, Misty Priors could also divine through dreams, but they weren't as effective as Seer. Sure isn't letting me go. All I can hope is for the early capture of Baby Bear. And collected himself and picked up the piece of paper with the diagram of the astrolabe. He slowly walked towards the door. He opened the door and headed to the reception area. He saw Anna looking out the window, completely ignoring her cup of black tea. Ah, Mr. Moretti, is there a result? She saw Klein in her peripheral vision and stood up in a hurry. Klein did not answer her immediately. Instead, he asked, according to the revelation he received from the dream, Does your, does your house or Mr. Mayer's house have a toy windmill? Anna's eyes widened, shocked into silence. After a while, she muttered, That was a present he gave me. It is by the door of my house. How did you know that? Can this be divine? Client smiled as he spoke in a gentle tone. Congratulations, Miss Anna. Mr. Joyce Mayers is currently a guest at your place. If you rush back, you should still be able to meet him. He just experienced a calamity, an unimaginable painful journey. What he needs now are not questions, but consolation and a warm hug. Really? Anna asked in disbelief. Fortune teller she knew would never speak with such certainty or give such firm conclusions. You will know if you go back immediately, Clara replied with a gentle tone and smile. Oh, Lord of Steam, is that true? Has my pure, has my poor Joyce returned? Are you certain? No, I cannot believe it. Anna froze for a moment and said a few delirious words. She took out one sorry note from her purse and did not wait for client to give her the change. She broke into a small jog as she left the divination club, taking a carriage back home. Does this include my tip? Client looked at the note and shook his head with a laugh. A two-wheel carriage steered quickly across the streets and entered Eastborough. Anna watched the street sweeping past her, feeling a mixture of unease, anticipation, and fear. It did not take long before the toy windmill entered her field of vision. She got off the carriage, showing no care for her bearing. She staggered quickly towards the door and rang the doorbell. The door creaked open, revealing a blond young man dressed in formal black suit. He was haggard, but his eyes carried a glint of joy. He had an aquiline nose. I thought I would miss you today, Joyce said with a smile. Oh, exalted Steam, you really are back. Anna rubbed her eyes, exclaiming in pleasant surprise. What the fortune teller said was true. No, that was a real seer. It was simply fascinating. Thought well done her mind as Anna pounced forward with tears in her eyes and gave her fiancé a warm hug. Two of them hugged silently outside the grayish blue house. The toy windmill turned slowly, seemingly tossing all the difficulties away. Chapter 56. Cave from the In a rather spacious living room, Anna and Joyce were seated on different sofas, separated by Anna's parents. Joyce sighed with a satisfied expression and said, "Exalted steam, I'm so lucky to come back alive, to be able to see Anna again." My poor Joyce, what happened? Anna couldn't help but ask with concern. Joyce took a glance at his fiancée, and his expression turned grave. I still, I still feel terrified to this day. I keep waking up from my dreams again and again. 5 days after the Alfalfa left Caesar Pier, we came across pirates, scary pirates. Only the fortunate thing was the leader's name was Nast. Call himself the King of Five Seas? Anna's father, Mr. Wayne, asked in shock. Although Joyce had already been there for half an hour, he did not volunteer details about his ordeal. He appeared to be fearful, disturbed, and uneasy. It was only after Anna returned and hugged him that he finally appeared to put it behind him. Yes, due to his declaration of being the descendant of the Solomon Empire, the king of five seas, Nast didn't believe in killing captives. Hence, we were only robbed and didn't lose our lives. His subordinates even left us sufficient food, said Joyce as he recalled the ordeal. His body started to quiver, but he continued to describe his deepest and scariest nightmare. I didn't lose much of my wealth. I believe that my misfortune was over, but as we continued towards our destination, a heated conflict erupted amongst the Alfalfa's passengers and crew. From disagreements to fighting to drawing revolvers and raising swords to kill each other, I saw nothing but blood during that period. One after another, people besides me fell with eyes open, never to be closed. Their limbs, hearts, and intestines were scattered across the floors. Those of us who were unwilling to turn into savage beasts, the rational group, had nowhere to hide and nowhere to escape. We were surrounded by deep blue waves and the boundless ocean. Some wailed, some begged for mercy, and some sold their bodies, but their heads were hung from the mast either way. Anna, I reeled in despair back then. I thought I would never see you again. Fortunately, in such a nightmare, there was still a hero. The captain took us to hide in the sturdy keel of the ship, and we relied on stored water and food there until the maniacs reached their limits. Mr. Triss encouraged us, courageously leading us in an assault against those murderers. After an unforgettable bloody battle, we survived, but the Alfalfa strayed off course, and only a third of the original sailors remained. When he depicted the most horrible and the darkest side of human psyche, Joyce couldn't help but recall the hero, the man that called himself Triss. He had a round and amiable face, was shy like a girl, and enjoyed staying in a corner. Only people whom he was familiar with knew that he was a very good conversationalist. But it was such an unremarkable boy who stood in front of everyone with determination in the worst of days. Oh, exalted steam, my poor Joyce, you went through such a heartbreaking ordeal. Thank God, praise be to God. He prevented us from eternal separation. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes as she constantly dotted 3 points to form a triangle, the sacred emblem of steam and machinery. Joyce revealed a faint, pale smile. This is the reward for our faith. The Alfalfa then went through storms, lost its course, and after surmounting one challenge after another, we arrived at the Enmet harbor. Due to the bloodbath that had taken place on the boat, those of us that survived were held captive by the police and questioned separately. We didn't have a chance to send telegrams home to update our loved ones. When they released us this morning, immediately borrowed some money from my friend and took the steam locomotive back. Thank God for letting me set foot on the land of Tingen again, allowing me to see all of you again. Then he looked towards his fiancée in confusion. Anna, when you saw me, I could feel your happiness and surprise, but I couldn't understand why you rushed towards the door so excitedly right after you got off the carriage. I had planned on giving you a huge surprise. Anna thought about what had happened earlier and continued in disbelief. There's nothing to hide, Joyce. As I was worried about you, I went to the only divination club in Tingan City today for a divination. That fortune teller? No. Seer told me, he said, your fiance has returned. He is in a house with a windmill. What? The vain couple and Joyce exclaimed simultaneously. Anna covered her face and shook her head. I can barely believe it either, but it happened. Exalted steam. Perhaps there really are miracles in this world. Joyce, that seer asked me for your name, characteristics, address, and birth date. He told me he was going to do an astrolabe divination. Then he asked me if the house with the toy windmill was yours or mine. When I confirmed it was mine, he said, congratulations, Miss Anna. Mr. Joyce Mayer is currently a guest at your place. What he needs now are not questions, but consolation and a warm hug. God, Joyce found it unbelievable and incomprehensible. Does he know me? Did someone send him a telegram? Could it be that he's familiar with the police in Inlet Harbor? No, that doesn't explain it. How did he know that I would come to your place? I, how could he possibly know that you would seek a divination? Did you make an appointment? No, I made a selection last at the last minute. Anna replied with a vacant looking expression. Perhaps a good seer needs to be in control of vast amounts of information, even if it cannot be used anytime soon. Perhaps this is the fascinating aspect of divination. Anna's father, Mr. Wayne, sighed and concluded. In the known history of more than 1,000 years and uncertain fourth epoch, and in the uncertain fourth epoch, divination had existed and had yet to appear. I think there must be a reason for that. Joy shook his head lightly and asked, what's that seer's name? Anna thought and said, Clan Moretti. In the reception lobby of the Divination Club, as Clan had spoken softly, Angelica knew not to go close. Therefore, she only saw Anna leave as though she had lost her soul, wearing shock and confusion on her face. Angelica briskly walked to the sofa and asked out of curiosity, was the result good? She did not dare ask the actual result, afraid of violating the per- unspoken rule of fortune tellers. Yeah, Clan nodded and took 3 copper coins from his pocket. 1/10 of a solly is 1.5 pennies, right? Yes. Angela Angelica looked at the copper coins and realized one of them was a penny and two of them were half pence. She quickly held it out and said, there is an additional half pence. Client smiled faintly and said, thank you for taking care of my customer. She gave me a tip, so it's only right I give you one. It's also a thank you for recommending me, he added in his heart. All right, Angelica felt an unknown fear of Klein, but since the reason was appropriate, she didn't refuse the offer. Klein returned to the meeting room, believing there would be more people requesting his divinations. However, he did not receive a second customer by 40 minutes past 5. It wasn't because club's business was poor, but because most people had already chosen a fortune teller. They were recommended by others and had long determined whose services to hire. In short, I'm still lacking in reputation. Klein laughed at himself for using game terminology. He finished his third cup of stevia black tea, grabbed his top hat and silver-edged cane, and walked leisurely out the meeting room. Angelica suddenly recalled Clace's instructions and she quickly moved to intercept him. Mr. Moretti, when will you be able to visit the club? Next, Mr. Glacis would like to thank you in person. I will come over whenever I'm free. If fate permits us, he will definitely meet me. Klein replied using the tone of a psychic charlatan as though he was in character. Then he left the club before Angelica could respond and took a public carriage home. When he stepped through his door, uh, when he stepped through the door, Clint found Benson reading the newspaper and Melissa putting together bits and pieces of gears, bearings, and springs in the evening sunlight. Good afternoon. Did Mrs. Short visit? Clint asked casually. Benson didn't put down his newspaper. Instead, he lifted his head. Mrs. Short's visit lasted 15 minutes. She bought some gifts, and she was very happy with the muffins and lemon cakes we prepared. She also invited us over whenever we have the chance to. She's a friendly, well mannered lady. She knows how to carry conversation very well, too. The only problem is their belief in the Lord of Storms. They believe that girls shouldn't go to school but should be homeschooled instead, Melissa complained. It was obvious that she was very upset about it. Don't mind that. As long as she doesn't disturb us, she will still be a good neighbor. Clan comforted his sister, smiling. The Loyan Kingdom was a multi-religious nation, like the Prosac Empire in the north, which only believed in the god. The Loyan Kingdom was a multi-religious nation, unlike the Prosac Empire in the north, which only believed in the Lord of Combat, or the Fenya Parto Kingdom in the south, which only worshipped Earth Mother. It was inevitable that the congregations from the three major churches of Lord of Storms, the Evanite Goddess, and the Lord of Steam and Machinery had conflicts in beliefs and customs. After making after 1,000 years of this, they restrained each other, making coexistence possible. Okay, Melissa pursed her lips and redirected her focus onto the piles of parts again. After dinner, Clan continued revising history. Only when Melissa and Benjamin showered and returned to their rooms did he wash up, enter his bedroom, and lock his door. He needed to organize and summarize what he had learned and the problems that he had encountered to prevent himself from forgetting or missing out critical points. Only by doing so would he be able to respond to subsequent developments in the future with a clear train of thought. Plant flipped open his notebook and took out his pen and started writing in Mandarin. Why is the key to digesting potions acting? Chapter 57, Organization and Summary. After pausing for a moment, Clan continued writing. The essence of resolving the problems with potions is through digestion, not by simply controlling it. This can be understood in a straightforward manner. Merely controlling it would be akin to using the power of potions as an external tool. A tamed beast, no matter how well controlled, would ultimately not be a part of a person. The risk of it turning on them would be ever present. As for digestion, it is to view the down portion as part of them. They can break it down, fuse with it, absorb it, and form an overall system. I am currently certain of this point. What is more important is how acting helps in digestion. According to my experience as a seer today, I can make two hypotheses. It can be verified, they can be verified in the future. One, acting based on the potion's name changes the state of one's body, heart, and soul, making them closer to the remnant headstrong psyche of the potion's core. This results in resonance, which allows gradual assimilation and absorption. Two, the remnant headstrong spirit, psych psyche, spirit of the magic medicine might be like a computer with complete defensive mechanisms. If one wishes to attack it and break it down, they will need to find a bug, security hole, or a key. The name of the potion provides the corresponding clue. Thus, we can disguise the body, heart, and soul as part of the system through acting, and so we deceive the system's defenses. In this line of thought is similar to Emperor Rosel's description. No matter which guess is right, there is no escaping the heart, body, and soul. for they are the only bridge between acting power of potions. Clan put down his pen and looked at the paragraph of text. For a moment, he even wanted to thank the education he received from the Hoodholic Empire. No matter if he chose science or engineering for his further education, he was equipped with the basics of logical thought. Otherwise, there was no way he could have become a keyboard warrior, nor would he have been able to analyze his current situation. Acting might have an effect, but we'll have to wait and see for the specific client client guest. After that, he wrote down his second question. Why would a seer, being more well learned and professional in the domain of mysticism, be lacking in means when it comes to direct combat? Wouldn't it wouldn't being more well learned and professional make a seer even more powerful, giving them the ability to discover a way to defeat their enemies? The reasons could be first, just like the web novels I have read in the past, I have transmigrated to a game world that becomes reality. Thus, different jobs come with different specialties that have to be balanced against each other. But up to this point, there has been no sign of this world being a game, nor are there any signs of mission like developments. I'll put this reason on hold, but it is very unlikely. Second, the fundamental law of this world is balance. The creator made this world with the core idea of balance. Third, ocean, oceans at the same sequence levels would have the same level of power. It is the most optimal state based on what our forefathers found out and summarized. Exceeding this level of powers would make it easier for one to collapse and lose control. Below this level of power would it below this level of power would make it such that one would not obtain the desired beyond their powers. Thus, under the situation of a balanced power level, being stronger in one area would naturally mean that one is weaker in another area. Fourth, everything is in this world originated from the same source. They were formed by the remnants of the Creator. Thus, everything in this world is technically fragments of the Creator, and the fact that they have complement each other would mean there are inherent shortcomings to an individual. I'm leaning towards the third and fourth reasons, but the latter stems from an unconfirmed myth and can only serve as a guide. Thus, I shall use third reason as a guide and try to ascertain it by using my current knowledge and future studies. At this point, Klein had already written two full pages but did not stop. Instead, he penned a new question. From what I learned today, my luck enhancement ritual is uh, categorized as a classic ritualistic magic. Similar kinds of ritualistic magic can be split into three parts. First, being a sacrifice that sparks the interest of the corresponding existence. Second is comprised of incantations specifically describing the existence in question. The third is using simple formatting and symbols to convey the what one is asking for. Using this as a benchmark to analyze the luck enhancement ritual, there is an obvious problem. There is no third part. It has the sacrifice aspect and the placement of staple foods and walking a square in counterclockwise manner with four steps. There's also a clear indication who the incantation is for, such as the phrase immortal Lord of heaven and earth for blessing. But all I did after was close my eyes and wait. There was nothing in the ritual that described the goal of enhancing my luck. In other words, the corresponding existence has no way of knowing what the so called luck enhancing ritual is asking for and do, can only do as they see fit. Do as they see fit. What a troll. Isn't this that darn quintessential divination and arcane arts of the Qin and Han dynasty too much of a troll? I must have had rocks in my head back then for trying. Clan stopped writing and took two deep breaths, trying hard to calm himself. He spat out a foul breath and continued writing. I can consider redesigning the ritual, making it more complete. The motive of the ritual shall be to return to earth, back to the world with my parents and friends. Then here comes the question: was the entity truly acting on a whim, or is there a deeper meaning to it? Also, is the entity that the descriptive and incantations point towards in this world same as the one from Earth? If so, the difference in results between the first and second ritual could be explained as entity doing as it wishes. But the results of me appearing above the grey fog during the second and third time, while being able to connect to justice and the hanged man, has basically no differences. Why would that be so? The fourth ritual tomorrow afternoon shows me the same stable results. If the fourth ritual tomorrow afternoon shows me the same stable results, that would mean that the effects are consistent. That would mean that the unknown entity has an agenda I do not know about. If that is the case, adding new descriptions and requests would not get me a clear response. In fact, it might complicate the ritual and result in adverse effects. Would the difference between the first ritual and the subsequent rituals, under the premise that the entity I called upon is the same one, mean that the result would be different depending on the world I'm in? It is like I am using different interface. Then how can I design it to obtain my desired outcome? If I think the entities behind the first and subsequent rituals are different, some of the questions can be perfectly answered. But similarly, the stability of the results in the second and third rituals would mean that the entity I am praying to has a certain agenda, and there's no way I can change that for the time being. The most important question is the identity of the entity that the ritual is directed. Where is he, and why doesn't he give me any clues or guidance? Could he be deep in the world of fog? Hmm. Can I treat him as an entity in slumber? An entity that would give fixed responses if I give him a certain stimulus, or would not interfere with what I do other than that? Then can I introduce a different ritual as a stimulus and conclude whether the feedback I receive is regular? That way I can find the correct method of returning. But the problem lies with the possibility that he is not asleep. In that case, such tests might result in terrifying outcomes. It might be really dangerous. The first attempt must be conducted with extreme caution. The design must not anger the being. What a headache. I need more knowledge. Klein sighed and gave a summary. Finally, he wrote down other miscellaneous items. There are always formless there are always formless voices resonating in my ears, shouting Hornassus, and was that saying Phrygia or Phagria? Hornassus is the mountain range dividing the Loen Kingdom and the Intis Republic. Its main peak is 6,000 meters above sea level. According to the records in the Antigonus family's diary, there existed a nation of Evernite in the fourth epoch. Is the nation of Evernite related to the Evernite goddess? Is there any connection between the two? Are they allies or enemies? Was the Antigonus family was the Antigonus family obliterated by the Church of Evernite due to the nation of Evernite? Did I hear murmurings coming from the diary, from the house of Antigonus family over 1 or 2,000 years? Why does what then does Phrygia, mm, Phlegria mean? An interesting question. To be able to leave behind such a diary, to leave behind sealed artifact 2-049 implies that the Antigonus family had possession of a relatively powerful beyonder power. If that is so, which sequence did they possess? Was it a complete or not complete? My realization that the diary is in the hands of Ray Beaver was a bit of a coincidence. but without any indication of it being arranged. Could my fate really be tied up with the diaries? His ideas were penned on the piece of paper. Land tried his best to write down the events that he had experienced and his guesses about their meanings. He wrote total 4 pages on both sides of each paper. The client suddenly tore off the 4 pages and read them from top to bottom, sometimes marking certain sections with his pen, adding a few sentences at other times. Time flew quickly. The crimson moon was temporarily covered by dark clouds. Client picked up the pocket watch on the table, snapped it open, and looked at the time. He put down the watch and took out a box of matches from his drawer. He lit one and brought it close to the 4 pages of notes. The orange flame ignited the edges of the paper and quickly spread. Clan placed the notes on top of the wooden dustbin and watched the ashes. He then released his fingers, allowing the papers to fall. In just 10 seconds, everything had disappeared. All that was left was a still swirling ash and charred bottom of the dustbin. As there was Emperor Rosette's secret diary in this world, Clan did not dare leave behind any evidence that he knew how to write Chinese. If old Neil and the rest discovered the 4 pieces of paper he wrote, he would have no idea how to explain the matter. And while writing the confidential questions, Klein was worried that one paying attention to his dreams would be able to see and decipher the contents, no matter which language he used, be it Loan, ancient Vesak, or Burmese. Therefore, he could only write notes in Chinese to organize and summarize. He was done with the task. He was done with the task. He burned the notes to leave no traces. And precisely because there was no way of saving, he set up a plan for himself. He would do such summary once a week just in case he forgot anything. As he watched the ashes fall, Clan pulled out a white piece of paper. He wrote the title, To My Respected Mentor. He wanted to write to Senior Associate Professor Quentin Cohen asking if he had any relevant information about the main peak on the Honassus mountain range. All right, I think we'll stop here for today. Covered 3 chapters. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye bye.